I presume you're wanting to prompt me to say Ipswich's late collapse, and I suppose the bigger picture is have they fully handed the initiative to Leeds United to stride off into the distance now?
Yeah, we'll start with Ipswich, Sam, because obviously Leeds got a win, Southampton got a win as well. Leicester with a draw at the top, and then we'll get into the top four. Where are you with this? Are you looking at this as a freak stoppage time where you're fairly well in control? I think the most sensible views watching that game would have said if Ipswich had got the win, it would have been one of those where we're all saying, "Oh man, they just find a way, don't they? They didn't play that well, but they found a way to get the 3 points, which is what good teams do." But it was just chaos, wasn't it? Ipswich got deeper and Cardiff put the balls in. They bounced for them and they got a couple of goals. And you have to show humility and defeat if you're an Ipswich fan and say, okay, it can happen. Where are you between it being a freak that you can put to one side and say that won't happen often and hopefully won't happen again for Ipswich's sake between now and the end of the season? Or, you know, Ipswich lost away at Preston, lost away at Cardiff. You know, could this affect them more? Start with Ipswich and then we'll look at the top four more broadly.
Can I say that it's both?
You can.
I'd be interested to know what Kieran McKenna's like immediate reaction and his response has been to it this morning. I think we're in a moment in time now where everyone pours over.
He looked pissed off at the end. I don't know with whom, but someone's probably getting it this morning. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know where he'll be with it. Whether he'll pour over the data from that game. I'm sure that they do that after every game. But how much will he think that was, part of this, or if it was just a bit of a freak or one of these results that's liable to happen? I mean, they've won, I think, 7 games away from home by the odd goal. So when you look at that, this is very out of character for the way they've performed from the start of the season. I'll just give you a few thoughts here. You can maybe jumble them into some kind of order or some kind of thought process. The substitutions obviously have been hugely impactful for Ipswich, but what it did on Saturday from my position was...
Talking about Big Keeper being on the near post for that corner.
Yeah, of course. It left them light. Twanzebe, I think, was still on the bench as well. So you could argue, and I don't know if this is the way that Ipswich have ever gone this season, but you could argue there was room maybe for an extra centre-half or certainly someone who could have combated the aerial threat, which unknowingly, actually, until the last week, I think, I didn't realise how fruitful Cardiff were from set pieces, far and away the most in the division. So that is an argument. And I think there's a couple of things going on here. Managers want to keep players that are impactful and in form involved. And I'm not saying that's, a sentimental reason that Kiefer Moore's come off and Al Hamidi's come on, but there's no doubt that Al Hamidi deserves to be getting minutes at the moment for Ipswich because he's proven very quickly to have a big part to play. And obviously fatigue comes into it as well. My last year or so, I was forever coming on in the last 5 minutes of games because the striker had ran his race. So there's a bit of that going on. And maybe as well, Ipswich know that when the game opens up, they can finish it. And he had all his, attacking changes on there. So I think that's a big argument. But I think if you flip it, you just say Cardiff are very good at set pieces. The depth of their squad is completely different to how it was in January. And a lot of these new players that have come in are looking the part. O'Dowda put into the mix there as well. Hasn't played since August, I don't think.
Really?
I think he's come on maybe the previous game. But obviously he's back fit now. And it's his goal that wins it. So, yeah, there was potential flaws maybe in how Ipswich went about it this weekend, but when you look at the bigger picture, they've been almost immaculate in these tight, tough away games, and one is just going to have to write off as a bit of a freak and hope they can bounce back in what are two really winnable games.
So I'm looking at it now, Sam. I wonder if you feel the same. I just look at Leeds and 11 wins in 12 games at this point in the season with 9 remaining. And everyone's got it circled now, Sam, because Leicester are in the FA Cup. That if Leeds were to beat Millwall, it's on Sunday next week, they go top of the table. And I just feel this momentum. And if you take everybody's trends into account, you can make a pretty reasonable argument that could Leeds now just push on through. Leicester dropped points at Hull, didn't they? How are you feeling about that in terms of Leeds at the moment and just banging the points out second to none?
Yeah, I think the Ipswich concession of goals, you'll be able to answer this. Would you just love a 1-0 at Portman Road in the next couple of games?
Not when you're talking, Sam, I happen to know I've got some good data on this on my phone. So when you're talking, I'm going to give you some data. But when people come to me, sorry to I've cut you straight off, but when people come to me and say, Ben, look at Ipswich's defence, teams who concede that many goals don't get promoted. And it's difficult to make an argument back, is it? Anyway, continue.
But also, like, to get that win in the league in the next few weeks or whatever, get a 1-0, 2-0 at Portman Road, that would give the players and probably the supporters the confidence about the playoffs, if it is indeed going to be playoffs as well, that they're not going to be just involved in a 7-5 semi-final thriller. To answer you about, absolutely, I think, there'll be people that will really fancy Leeds to overturn Leicester now. I think I've been saying for the last few weeks, and I will stick to it, that Leicester and Southampton had the hardest run-ins in my mind. But I wouldn't be willing to say now that Leeds have overtaken Leicester as my favourites for the title. What I will say is if Leeds can cut the deficit to a point, maybe 2, and we're talking about this with 4 games to go, I think there's a very, very realistic proposition that Leeds could win the title. West Bromwich Albion, Southampton, those 2 games at home, we know about that one. Preston and Blackburn, they're Leicester's last 4, I think, if I've got that the right way round. And I think if Leeds are still there when it gets to that real crunch time, then yeah, there's still the potential of a title race, but I wouldn't be willing to be that strong in it at this point. I still think, as Liam Rossini said after the game at the weekend, I still think Leicester will probably just about have enough to win the title.
I've got the data from our guy, Chris, who's brilliant statistical guy on the Blue Monday podcast Telegram group. So Ipswich at the moment have conceded 49 goals. Southampton have actually conceded 47 as well. Would you believe it's our good friends, Norwich City, 58 most conceded in promotion. This looks like the data he's given me for Premier League era. And then Norwich again with 57. West Brom, 55. Barnsley, we're going back to 96, 55. So basically, Sam, I think the magic number is 60. That if you're a team that concedes 60 goals, history, and, history doesn't always completely predict exactly what's going to happen. It gives us a bloody good idea, though, doesn't it? So yeah, that's what the data says to it, and it's certainly a reasonable argument. Can we just round out this chat and talk a bit about Southampton? They've won back-to-back games. They're 5 points behind with a game in hand, Sam. But my brain is now saying, with the fixture congestion, and we know there's far more important things when there's a building burning down next to Southampton Stadium than what it's going to do to their fixture list. But the knock-on effect of that is now, if Southampton do this, Sam, with a Preston game to be rescheduled and a game away to Leicester being rescheduled, when we already knew they also had to go to Ipswich and Leeds, this will be remarkable from Russ Martin if he can make the run now to take second. Yeah,
I think the psychology of having that outstanding run from so deep and then having the setbacks of the last few weeks, I wouldn't necessarily buy enormous amounts into it unless they had those fixtures. And when you contextualise that they've got what Ipswich, Leicester and Leeds in the remainder, they're not going to have to be faultless, but they're going to have to be pretty remarkable.
7 points maybe from those 3 away trips.
So when you put that in context, then yeah, absolutely, it would be an amazing achievement. But they've got good players. They've got really good players.
Loads of them as well.
And they're very free scoring, and it doesn't really matter what the permutation is of that midfield or the forward players. And they got really strong bench. Signings have come in and had a good impact. Brooks and Rothwell I spoke of earlier. So it wouldn't completely surprise me, but I think because of the magnitude of some of the fixtures, for them to go on another pretty amazing run now would be some going. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them now, I think.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Sam. I think I'm a bit higher on the idea of Leeds pushing through and taking the title than you are. But am I concluding that we're kind of both edging towards, in whatever order, Leicester and Leeds being in the top 2 and Ipswich and Southampton being in the playoffs? That's kind of where I am today. But give me Easter and that could all change. No, am I right in saying that's where you are?
I think so. And yeah, there's just something within me, and I don't know if it's just because of the journey, like where Ipswich have come from, but I just think if that Bristol City game was the penultimate game of the season, I'll be like, it doesn't matter how you win, doesn't matter, you got 3 points. But with such a chunk of the season still to remain, so many points to be played for, I just think that's a little bit alarming. And I'm less worried about Saturday. I'm less worried about Saturday. I just don't think, playing poorly as they did in that game against Bristol City and getting over the line late in the game because of the impact of substitutes and because of that never say die attitude, I just don't think that'll maybe keep happening. If you're conceding so many goals, I think there's teams that are defensively better that Ipswich have still got to play who won't allow that. So yeah, that's, without me saying like Ipswich are the worst team defensively, because I think they are capable, as they've shown on the road, of performing. I think it is an issue, the amount of goals they're conceding.
Defences win titles, don't they, Sam? Yes, they do. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Give us a 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want to. You're allowed an opinion, and you're allowed to change your opinion as we go through the season. We'd love to hear yours in the comments. And remember, predicting somebody not to win the championship title doesn't mean that we have an irrational hatred of said team. You're allowed to like salt and vinegar crisps, Sam. That doesn't mean you hate prawn cocktail. You just might be preferring salt and vinegar on that.
You do well to find me a crisp that I don't like, mate, to be honest. You do very well.
Go. Maybe this Walker's chat is pushing towards Leicester in the connection with the Walker's Stadium back in the day. But